Bienvenue à tous. Au séminaire par les Rromani civilisation. On continue donc le séminaire sur la civilisation romani. Tai bari losh, tai bari pativ, ka pashmande sia amari pen, et Miranda Vuolasranta, andaro finiti kotem. C'est donc un grand honneur et une grande joie pour nous d'accueillir près de moi Madame Miranda Vuolasranta de Finlande. Au séminaire Invitée, Pachavka aven mai palal mai budgenjene, si o palutno dive e berchesko, doleske si sera pares. J'espère que d'autres personnes vont venir plus tard. C'est le dernier jour de l'école, donc c'est un petit peu difficile pour certains. Non, naïs et manucheski odote, achola, aki a confessa qu'achol pe ande archivé et universitake. Mais grâce au travail de ce monsieur, la conférence va rester dans les archives de l'université. Donc, je peux dire qu'elle a tout bout. Miranda Vuolasranta kotar nanumai kotaro durutno finiti kotem no vi kotaro durutno Strasbourg kakate mamashkar amende tai pacha soavdive ka vakeles pa lo romani pen ta ne savait aspecter andali romani politica andi Europa. Donc Madame Vuolasranta, je les remercie d'être venue pour nous parler de certains aspects de l'identité Rome et de certains aspects de la politique romani en Europe. Ivorva.
Me parkavatut puut. Mena natsana sarputtumen hajuvena mango iakkudialekto merakkava finitiko kaalengo dialekto. Tätä me kammiom te sikaveltumenge o angluno tia. Sar sunnelas pe ta sarputtumen hajuvenas kamerakkavas mo ieko miri ieko dialekto kaalo dialekto. Doleske kaalo dialekte isi iek sartepenel dialecto mascare romengo dialecto akana merela doleske palunes anto Finlandia kotem ai anto Spania kotem o majoriteetti o socialno majoriteetti naikamiol na kammital amen terakel amengo dialecto sas niekime na mukhal o majoriteetti mentera kel amengo chip anto Spania anto Finlandia o pale o paro kurripa boli bosko kurripa o sas ajasavo situaatsia aromengo tem tai majoriteetti penlemenge anto troma anto publikkia ko steti naimukella tumentera kel adives o purane Roma ante Finlandia tem rakkila panna kaalo dialekto. Dola konisi sartepenel pansvardes pers nai putite rakkerla no gutti rakkela kajon kahela ketanes kajensa tai nai kammela kajente hajuvel sote rakkel o penela romanenko laave ai kaalenko laave o terne ai savore nai hajula adives te rakkel romenno sim. Tauasas exemplarno tumenge sarte sikavel sarputtumen hajuvena totta somerakkavaa.
Donc je l'ai laissé dire sa première partie tout en Kaale qui est le dialecte des Rroms de Finlande. Elle voulait que vous entendiez à l'oreille un petit peu l'impression que ça fait et que vous êtes peut-être parmi les dernières personnes à entendre ce dialecte qui est un dialecte à l'agonie en ce moment, qui est comparable à la situation des Roms d'Espagne. Et parce que, comme en Espagne, les gadgets ne laissaient pas parler, notamment pendant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, ne laissaient pas parler les gens ni sur la route, ni dans les rues, ni dans les lieux publics, le romani, si bien que ça a marqué pratiquement la fin du romani. Pendant les 50 années qui ont suivi la guerre, seuls les vieux continuent à utiliser encore, entre eux, en général, pour cacher ce qu'ils disaient, pour que les gadgets ne comprennent pas. On peut dire que les jeunes et les enfants, à l'heure actuelle, ne comprennent plus du tout cette langue. Donc elle a voulu vous donner un exemple de cette langue dont elle est une des dernières locutrices actives.
So I would like you to help me to decide what language to use during these lectures, because it takes a much more time if I would prefer to speak on Kaalo dialect and Marcel have to translate it, it takes a much more longer time. And if you would accept me to speak on English, it will shorten the time very much. What's the
Donc je pense que le mieux c'est de passer à l'anglais, ça évitera de faire des traductions. Ça pourra, comme elle est assez rarement ici, tout sera gardé dans les archives et les gens pourront exploiter avec plus de facilité sa présentation. D'accord?
Okay. I will go further with Anglican. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Miranda and I'm coming originally from Finland. I'm belonging to a Kaale group, as Marcel was already telling to you. Our group in Finland is one of probably, welcome. Hello. No, it's okay. It's because it's a hot day and we know that there is exams ongoing today. I hope all the exam has gone well. In any case, so the group which I'm coming from, the Kaale group, we are spreaded the Kaalos in Europe in at least in 3 different countries. Might be that there is Kaalos in other countries also, but we know that in Finland, in Spain and in Scotland, once upon a time in UK, there was clearly a Kaale group traveling through or staying there. In today's position, we can say that the Kaalos have lost a big part of fluent mother tongue of their Kaale dialect. That's because what I said previously here, it was not allowed to speak in public places officially. Because of that, our parent generation after the Second World War lost their capacity to speak Kaalo. And that has been even more happened in Spain, because in today's situation I know that they have only a few lists of old Kaale words, but none actually does speak anymore Kaale fluently. In Finland, besides of that, we do have these old people which are more than 50, 60, 70 years, which do fluently still speak Kaale dialect. And the constitutional law changed in Finland during last decade in 19th, and it nowadays allows the Kaale dialect to be taught in normal school structures inside of the normal school curriculum, at least 2 hours per week for each child who prefers or wants to be taught in Kaale dialect. That's only an explanation. Nowadays, in current situation, I'm working in the Council of Europe. My government has sent me in to work in the Roma Gypsies division, which is located in the social cohesion in Council of Europe, which have during last 7 years have different kind of activities concerning Roma human rights, social rights, basically those big main areas, but also other activities. The last phenomenon to come into the Roma Gypsy division activities is that during this year and the next year at least, we are going to have the Roma language and the culture and the Romani cultural identity quite strongly in the pictures, and we are going to organize seminars and discussions around these new items, which I think, in my personal opinion, is the most essential part. If we are talking about preserving the Roma's rights, then we have to start with the language and the cultural identity. We have some hours now, and I have had in my mind to divide these hours with starting with the kind of cultural identity characters, which are the main characters of the Roma culture in almost all of the regions in Europe. The second item will be an example of Finland, how the Roma issues has been developed and achieved in Finland. And the third part of the whole compilation will be how the European politics are developing and proceeding nowadays in the European framework. And particularly what are the initiatives which are now a kind of hot discussion item and an object of examination, for example, in Council of Europe, namely the Roma's own participation in decisions which affect themselves. I'm starting with the culture. I'm not in very clear waters. We had some discussions with Marcel before we came here, how much this item has been discussed during your seminars and your lessons. But if you do feel that this is something which you have heard before, or that it is too clear for at least part of you, then apologize before I start for that. But I think that generally the item of Romani cultural identity has been taught, spoke and thought far too little in the whole Europe and probably in the whole world. That's one of the reasons why in today's situation we still are encountering a lot of prejudices, and it has also its influence into the discrimination and non-tolerant attitudes among the majority different social levels. At least we can say almost in all levels. Why is that a people group living at least 700 years in Europe still encounters so strongly discrimination, intolerance, non-adjustable attitudes, fears, reservation, not welcoming attitudes? My explanation is that because partly the reasons are lying on the Roma's own cause, because these people has been nomads quite a long time, a low level of education, which is also a clear phenomenon, and because of prejudices in the past. The group closed itself, and the main kind of long gone, red gone among the thinking ideology among the Roma when it concerns Romani, the Romani identity, Romani culture, is that in the old days, the old people used to learn to the younger generation, don't tell anything about ourselves to non-Roma, to Gajos, because the more they know about us, the more they can use it as a tool against us. Because of that, the Romani groups, the various Romani groups, build up a kind of border protection mechanisms, which didn't actually allow really to tell what are the inside values of the culture. In today's situation, we all know that for at least people who doesn't have personal contacts with the Roma or the Roma communities, they usually have these attitudes of that Roma are dangerous, they are lying, they are thieves, all the bad and negative phenomena and characters. And that, unfortunately, has been taken as the visible part of Romani culture. When we are speaking about gypsies, Tsigan, Tsiguinare, Mustalainen, then the people who doesn't have any personal contacts, they usually connect all these negative attitudes. Oh, gypsies! These people we have to be a little bit careful with have a certain distance with. And my personal opinion is that one of the reasons for this, that these attitudes still prevail, is that we haven't had really opportunity to include in the teaching curriculum of schools and universities any remarks, any facta information. Who are the Romanis? What is their culture? What are the cultural main values? What is the real identity of the Romani P? And what does it include? Because of lack of this information, these attitudes prevails. And we doesn't have such kind of information in the ordinary school teaching materials or the books which has to be read through, not even in the anthropological or socio-anthropological side, which would be a kind of natural field to have at least some information about this people group, which contains about 8 to 10 million people in today's Europe. But Europe is getting more and more increasingly multicultural and international. And the people who are meeting or non-Romas, who have, according to their professions, serve customs which are coming from different cultures, it is very good, or even, let's say, a kind of basic norm to know a little bit about these people. I will go into basically in the Roma history, some main mentionings, because I'm sure that you have already been reading or taught quite precisely about our culture and our past and history. So I'm only mentioning some details to coming up into Europe and of the Roma language, the occupations and the educations, the main characters of the culture, the definition of the name, how do Roma feel when they meet each other, even strangers and people who doesn't know each other, respecting of the elderly, the family values and housing, customs which are visible and differs when we are living in a housing kind of way and not anymore being nomads, the customs of cleanliness, the customs of chastity, death and funeral, and concept of justice, the obligation to avoid, and religion. I don't think that I can go through all the information which are in my inside of my lecture, but I'm going to leave you copies of this lecture, which you can later on be a little bit more familiar with. This lecture is mainly made a summary of this guidebook, which we made, and I was chairing in Finland. It's a guidebook made for the healthcare professionals in Finland, and which has been disseminated to all schools, university hospitals, medical clinics, and also other university students are using this small guide, which is describing very precisely what is the Romani culture about, what are the fears, and for example, when we are talking about relations to majority, and particularly when a person is being sick and needing hospital care, and in many cases the Roma, and among the Roma, we are speaking many times about discrimination and prejudicial attitudes among majority towards Roma, but many times we forget that among the Roma is also existing fears, prejudices and attitudes, many times very negative and reserved attitudes towards majority. And unfortunately, this is a result of the unfortunate past and the bad experiences in our past. So until the 18th century, the roots of the Roma were quite much hidden. And as you quite well certainly do know, that the discovering of the linguistic background was one of the phenomena which connected somehow our origin and helped the researchers to describe what are these people, and through the language they find a way to connect us and our past into India. But because in the 18th century and 17th century there was no educated Roma who could tell, there were no literated people who could tell when they came into Europe that who these people are and where they are coming from. So in India there is, I'm now in very sensitive area, because we have Marcel here, who is a linguistic and has researched a lot about our culture. But I would also like to say that there is, as you know, certain different kind of theories. We doesn't have in today's concept a theory which can 100% certainly prove what is the exact origin of the Roma. There is different kind of theories, different kind of research according to our DNA, linguistical background, cultural social behavior, religion, etc. But none of these theories have until today's could proved with exactly certainly that this is the only right theory for the Roma's origin. Because of that, I'm telling these things according to the information which I have in today's situation. So if you have more recent information about our past and our history, so feel free to analyze these different kind of theories. The name Dumba or Doma with the capital D is for the first time found in Sanskrit literature in the text Brihat Samhita by the writer or scientist Varahamira 550 after Christ. In those remarkings, the Domba and the Dumba means a lower caste person or caste earning their living by singing and playing music. From this word Dumba, there has developed the European Romani words as Rom, which means man and husband, Rromani, the language, the Armenian Romani Lovari, word Lom, and the Romani in the Palestinian, the Nuris with the word Dum, the Nurian Romani. The same word Dombu is also the origin of the name of the Dom tribe, who lives in the northern Pakistan, and of the name of their language, Domaki. On the other hand, the Dom tribes of Pakistan and India do not speak the actual Romani language, and although their languages are related to Romani. The origin of this word, and I remind you that I'm not saying that this is the only right theory. The origin of this word Dom, according to the Sanskrit scientists, are coming from originally from the meaning drummer. Since Sanskrit contains a great many words which have this origin, like dindima, dundubhi, and which means drum. And also the word domaki, damara, trum. In any case, these words are not original Sanskrit words. Rather, they were loaned to the Sanskrit or Prakrit from some Munda language belonging to the Austroasiatic language group. The Romani language has a large number of words originating from Sanskrit and Prakrit, as we know, which are encountering from another Indo-Aryan languages such as Hindi and Domaki. No words are found in Romani which are not also found in some form in Sanskrit or Prakrit. And this is guiding the way that even if we today in our language is words coming from Persian, Greek, Romance and Germanic languages. In other words, there are no signs that the Romani people originally spoke a non-Indo-Aryan language. This theory has come up, which I now told to you, has been found by a researcher with the name Pertil Tikkanen, who is a docent of South Asian linguistics in Helsinki University, and he is also a doctor of Sanskrit and other Indian languages like Kashmiri, Bengali, Tamil, and Kuruk. This is one of the explanations. When the Roma came into Europe in the 14th century, the feudal system was still in place in Europe. And it was basically solely based on the inequality of people. The Romas differed, of course, from the Europeans and their language and customs. In the feudal society, Roma were left outside of the social classes, and attitudes towards the Roma were negative. The Roma were expelled from country to another, they were persecuted, and their human rights were taken from them. For centuries, the legislation of various countries did not recognize the rights of the Romas. In many countries, the legislation was used in the attempt and to destroy the Roma. The latest period of persecution is, of course, the World War II, where at least 600,000 Roma were killed. But the researchers' latest estimations of this number of the Roma casualties are running up to 2 million. The Roma were not socially taking account until the 20th century, when more attention was paid towards enhancing the living conditions of the Roma. I'm not going very deeply, and I don't want to go because I know that there is better experts in the language field, but I'm just in a kind of root level person saying that according to the general understanding of the Roma, the dialects which are now spoken in today's Europe are divided mainly by the groupings and the division between the old traditional professions, which were in use already when they left India, namely the tinsmiths, the coppersmiths, the handicraft people, the musicians, and these old traditional groupings which are under Kaldarashi, Lovari, Kaale, Sinte, and many other kind of subgroups which we do have in today's Europe. I think that Marcel is one of the best experts in this area, and you certainly have heard his theories in how many different subgroups in today's Europe we do have, and I'm not going into more into this field.
Please.
Ta? Ne varte kana. Para da Shati shunasa taki kaseta.
Dajo do 10
Tačaresto ba. No.
We do know.
The D of Dumaki is not a retroflex.
No, the Dumaki has no connection with Dom. It's an error. There is no connection between Dumaki and Dom.
Maybe you will have an extra lecture after me to correcting all the mistakes which I am coming with.
No, it's not. And here it was a misprint. It is Lomari with M here.
Lomari. Might be. In any case, we know that approximately 30% of the words are coming from Sanskrit. And according to different researchers, about 20% of the words are sibling words to Hindi, Urdu, Marathi, Bengali. So that means actually that we have a basics of at least, let's say, 40 to 50% common words, original words in the Romani. And then these dialects which are used of the main groupings and their subgroups has of course been developed according to the regions and the surrounding languages. What we can constitute in today's situation is that because of lacking of written literature and civilization and education among Roma during the centuries spent here in Europe, today's language is a little bit old-fashionable and needs an urgent kind of modernization. We could say that the last decade, the 19th, has been very important decade for the Roma language in the sense that throughout the fairness of Roma has been grown rapidly about social responsibility, social cooperation, education, the need of taking part, establishing organizations, and also there we can recognize that in the end of 19th, the Roma in Europe started to be aware of the need of political participation. And this political participation and increasing of activities among the Roma and in between the Roma and the other actors in European field, the Romani language has had a kind of additions, a lot of new increasing modern words has been established, and one of the reasons is the numerous seminars and conferences and events and trainings which has been organized during the last decade. And in these occasions there has been the Romani translation, both in oral interpretation and also in written translation versions. And that has meant that the translators has played and the interpreters has played a very, very important role in modernizing the ancient word vocabulary of the Roma. And that has of course had a very positive influence for the Romani language and its use. The occupation and education, the agricultural society, when the majority of the Europeans still lived in agricultural society, all the professions was learned from the father to the son, from the mother to the daughter. And the differences between the Roma and the majority was not so very evident or clear, and they didn't have so long gap in between. But during the last century, this gap has been rapidly growing all the time, because the Roma remained in the old traditional professions mainly, and the majority societies they developed in a modern way, in a technological direction, and that left the Roma in back. The industrialization made the traditional occupations of the Roma unprofitable, and the Roma had no find new occupations. The adult education aimed at the Roma population has offered the chance to modernize the traditional skills in various countries. For example, we can see that the old horse tailors are today used cars salesmen. And the sewing women, which were very clever in handicrafts, they are today sewing costumes professionally. For example, in Finland, the main part of the Finnish Romani ladies, whose traditional profession was sewing different materials, today they are doing these dresses professionally by order, and they are doing well. The Ministry of Labour organized modernization trainings for them for half year and a year, and they were learned how to make how to use the modernized industrial techniques for the modern skills. But even though we can see that the low level of education the Roma are aimed is very visible in today's Europe, the culture and the traditions of the Roma differs from those of the majority culture. The life are measured with alternative methods. The customs and the distinctive style of dressing among the Roma have given the community its identity. Earlier, we Roma didn't have any kind of richness in besides which could be fitted into the wagon and bundle of children. The only thing we owned was the customs and the traditions, in other words, the culture and one another. The true home is of man is in his relationships, says an old Romani tale. When the Roma do meet, they always used to stay and have a conversation if it's possible. In a traditional manner, if Roma who are strangers and doesn't know each other, the younger ones have to offer or ask the elder one if he or she wants to drink a cup of coffee, or bring him to the nearest cafeteria, or invite him or her into his home. The hospitality is one of the main values in the Roma culture. You have to invite even strangers. One thing which is quite, giving us Roma a way of safetyness is that wherever a Roma goes, the Roma never exactly do feel that they are totally alone, because in each country you can find, if you want to church, you can find Romas, and once you find Romas, then even if you doesn't have money, or you have cries, or you have problems, you are in situation where you can ask for help. You can ask to be sleeping overnight, and you will be afforded food and water and everything what is existing in the house. And it sounds quite easy and simple when I'm telling you that, but it is in reality, it is functioning. And it is one of the main values which is differing. Think about 8 to 10 million Roma people in today's Europe. And if they travel to another country and find themselves in problems, they always can find help. There is people who are speaking their language, and they are welcomed into the other Roma's homes. And this, as you know, is a clear distinctness to the majority culture. Who of you could go to Italy, for example, and found you be robbed, for example, of all your money and traveler checks, and you find yourself there without money, and could you have a possibility to knock in the nearest person's door and say that, dear friend, I have been robbed, I doesn't have money and I doesn't have food and I don't know where to go and sleep over? The Roma can do it. If they find themselves in Italy and they find them in situation where they cannot manage, they can find help. And this is one of the, how to say, social, relational, cultural main characters all over the Europe. Respecting of the elderly is the second one. It's one of the basic principles in the Romani culture. The elders are in a position of respect, admiration and privilege. The appreciation is not given to old age only, but the wisdom, the experience and mastering of traditional knowledge that comes with old age. The utmost respect and appreciation of the elder is customary for Eastern people. The elders are the authorities of the group. A distinctive character of the Roma behavior patterns is the relationship between the young and the old. Many of the traditions are connected with respecting the older people. The young call the older Roma in more formal address like Papo, the grandfather, or you. The older always eat first. They will get the best places to sleep in. And the Roma try to take care of the elders inside of the family or the kin, and they usually do not want to place them into old people's homes. The elders are seen as the mental capital and richness because of their life experience. Togetherness of the family and the kin, the vitsa, is important. In the gender equality manner, the well-being of the family is counted as the true value, not individuals' rights. If a relative is having a hard time in his or her life, the family tries to help and support him. These situations may include, for example, financial difficulties, divorce, sickness, and death. In a balanced Roma family, the man and the woman do not compete against another. The man is the head of the family, and the woman is the heart of it. Both are important for the well-being of the family. A man is appreciated according to how well he can support his family, and a woman according to how well she manages the home and the children. In the Roma community, the women are in a high standing. They create the atmosphere of the home and are fundamentally strong persons in the feminine way. Although the Roma women still have many responsibilities, they do not usually feel them oppressed. The question of the equality between men and the women is not important. Within the group, the men are in the background when the issues connected with the role and the status of women are dealt and vice versa. On the other hand, it is important to notice that the differences in the roles of the men and women do allow the men to discriminate and treat their families badly. This phenomenon is not due to the Romani culture, but usually it is due to the problems within the family. The Roma are very sensitive and emotional. To cry, for example, is not denied for the men. And it is very needed also in certain situations when something bad is happening. I think that one of the reasons why the Roma doesn't have so much or so big percentage of mental sicknesses is the phenomenon of near relationship, and that you are allowed to show your feelings and your emotions. You are allowed to speak out how do you feel. And it is not a shame for a man to cry. Also the men are allowed to do that. Thank you. The elders and the children have always been special groups within the Romani culture in general. They play an important role in both women's and men's roles. Both genders are responsible for the well-being of the elders and the children. Things are different in the Roma traditional closed communities, where the child is under the clear protection of a firm educational system. with rules and values, very well structured and different from the ones of the majority in an ethnic autonomy that rejects any kind of acculturation. In the Romani traditional family, Romani pen, the Romani law, is the heart of the identity. A child is seen as the most crucial part of the family, the embodiment of the absolute purity, guarantee of the vitsas continuity. The rules of pakiv, honor, faith and shame prevent, for example, a woman from passing in front of a man. She has to announce the fact that she wants to pass by saying arak, take care, or I'm bold, turn yourself away. And the man has to turn his look from her to let her pass. On the contrary, a woman with the child in her arms, considered pure by the child's presence, and can pass any time in front of a man. Seen as pure, children are allowed to do things that are forbidden for adults, such as wearing, for example, short clothes. The ideal Roma family has an equal number of boys and girls, the twins of opposite sex being considered as a special luck. In case of infertility, a great shame and sorrow for the family. Consider it a result, of course. Adoption is a frequent practice, and the adopted child has the full rights, just a natural member of the family. Such practice is normal in a culture where the family extends itself to the level of the community. More than that, the Roma child does not belong to his parents only. He is a common fortune and happiness of the whole community. And he can sleep today at home, tomorrow at an aunt or another relative, with the total agreement of his parents. The main principle of which the Roma children education in family is based are linked with the fact that they are considered small adults, gifted from birth with will, wishes, emotions and intelligence. To all this, purity is added, the only minus being the lack of experience. Early marriages is a difficult item, and even among the Roma in the latest years we have been waking up to a discussion on whether it is right or not right, these early marriages. For example, we do know that the Roma girls can be married out in age of between 14 and 20 years. And this is a common phenomenon among the Roma even today. It's not my personal opinion that I would think that it is a good thing to marry out the daughters in very early ages. But I give you one explanation, and this is according to the traditional values and traditional thinking way why the early marriages are needed. It's the normal way for the traditional families to control the sexual life of the youngsters. It is well known from the medical point of view that these are the ages when these instincts is manifested anyway. So the only thing the traditional culture is doing is that it wants to control and protect the individuals from any deviation from the recognized model and to bless the act by marriage. The interest of other gender is beginning in the same ages also in the modern culture, but it is in a secret way and uncontrolled way, so it can anytime be dangerous. Traditional culture prefers to keep everything under control, mothers being responsible for their daughters' purity and having the duty to teach them the proper behavior for their status. Boys are educated to be strong. They are sent to an uncle, to their godfather or to other male relative with prestige in the family. children are educated in the spirit of pralipe, brotherhood. All brothers are equal. Children speak with their parents in terms of their first name or addressing them formally with the fifth person, tu me. A parent to child with mo chavo, a boy, or chaye, girl. They are equal with adults and they have no taboos because they are pure. On the other side, the community rules are taught to them in early ages in a natural, quite slow process of initiation based on resistance to frustration, paki, faith, honor and trust, and lajavipe, same, shared responsibility and mutual help. It is typical for the members of the Roma community to take part in the upbringing of their children. Although it is the woman's duty to pass on the traditions, the fathers play an important role in their children's well-being in relation to the kin and other Roma. How much a child learns in the school, or how skilled and able he or she is not primarily important to the Roma parents. It is important for the child to have a safe and happy childhood. The Roma children have a lot of knowledge of people and the human nature from a quite early age. They receive teaching and wisdom from the adults and learn to live as members of the community from the birth. The Roma children have to face other people's negative attitudes early on in their life. Because of that, the Roma parents strive to give the sons and the daughters strong roots so they can deal with the difficulties their native causes. The kin, as well as the nuclear family, has shared the responsibility for caring the young. The Roma have not placed their children in a daycare until the recent days. And this is again a point where I want to a little bit touch. I am coming from a very traditional Roma family. As you see from my own dress, in Finland, for example, the young Roma women are brought up in the way how I described you about the purity, lajavape, honor and paki. It means that we in early ages we do recognize and we are aware of two different kind of purity models. The Western one, which you can get by just washing, and the Oriental one, which is connected to the value of purity, impurity, where the impurity is connected to the human body, which from the lowest part is impure and the upper part is more pure. This is very difficult to understand within one lecture because you had to know much more of the inside, how the child, for example, is raised up. To simplifying the things, for example, how we in Finland learned the children these purity values, the Oriental ones. We say that when a child is standing up in the morning and when he puts the clothes on, everybody has to after that wash its hands before coming to kitchen and touching in the things existing in kitchen, because kitchen is a pure place for the traditional Roma, which means that all the levels of floor, for example, and the places where you are sitting are impure. The table, the cutlery, the food, and the water, they are pure places. And this is the big division. Otherwise, I don't know exactly how to simplify, how to describe you so that you would during one lecture to understand the difference between the Oriental and the Western type of purity system. But to giving these simplified examples, helping you to understand what are the values in between these purity systems. The customs are also visible in housing. for example, in Finland, if there is a monk flat, a flat house, where the one flat is on the other flat, so the older Roma family, for example, cannot live downstairs and the younger family upstairs, because the youngers are less pure in an oriental view than the elders. Simplifying the whole thing, saying that the children are pure, as I was describing here. The adults are impure, and the elderly are again getting pure. And it's connected with, of course, with the gender and the activity in sexual life and all these things. But the elder you get, the more pure you get again. Because of that, the elderly are honored in a way that the young family, for example, can never live upon the elder family, because that they are less impure than the elderly. We have to say here that what I'm now describing you about the inside Romani values is the very original, old-fashionable cultural values and characters. And it might not be that every group in Europe are living according to these values. They are more or less liberal. They are more or less assimilated or not assimilated. Or they even can deny their cultural heritage and existing of these cultural characters. But I'm describing to you today the old-fashionable, basic main characters of what Romani culture was in the very beginning. And there is still existing groups in different parts of Europe which are 100% living according to these values. The dress which I'm wearing today is weighing about 10 kilo. It's a long dress. Yes, it is surprising. One reason why there is such much material is that this dress is used in Finland. And geographically, Finland is a cold region of Europe, particularly in the winter time. When the Roma wagons, they were traveling. My first life experiences and memories are coming from traveling life. I'm remembering a wagon or what is the sleigh? It's the thing which is on the winter time. What is it in English?
Sledge.
In sledge, yes. On wagons and in sledge. So on the winter time in Finland and also in Russia, in Sweden, there can be 25 minus. So because of that, during the centuries which they spent there, approximately 500 years, more and more material was coming onto this dress. But besides of this material, there is the common things are that the materials are very colorful. The skirt is long and aimed to not show the legs and the hands, because it is shame. It's lajav be. The woman, adult woman without clothes, should not show her legs and arms to elderly people, particularly. Because of that, the women's have the girls have in ages, let's say between 14 and 20 years, they have to make a decision whether they are accepting this traditional way of living and the values which they have learned during their bringing up time. If they are accepting it, it's a strong signal to the community that they are accepting the cultural identity, all the cultural values of purity in purity system, and they are ready to transfer these values to their children. If the decision is made, and it can be made freely, the girls are not pushed or oppressed to do that. They can freely choose. If they are accepting it, it's a lifelong decision. They will never wear any other clothes in front of elderly Roma than the traditional ones after the decision. Because in case they would one day, for example, decide that I don't want to wear this dress anymore, that would be a signal for the community that I'm denying my identity and my cultural heritage. I doesn't want to belong in the community anymore. On the contrary, there is a possibility that the girl doesn't have to choose these traditional clothes. If she's choosing to not wear the traditional clothes, she can still be a member of the community, but with the certain limits. She have to signalize to the community that she is honoring the older people. If she is living inside of the community and are in contact with the community, the girl can never wear, for example, jeans or shorts. It has to be a long skirt in anyhow, even if it's not the traditional one. So these are the kind of inside rules for the girls and the reasons why of these traditional dresses. But we could say that quite many of these customs which I have been described to you is not how to say only found in Romani culture. Let's say that 100 years ago in Europe you could find quite much similarities and even exactly the same kind of values and cultural customs that we have in Romani culture still today. So the Europeans, let's say the Europeans have had the same values, but in today modernized situation, the majority people are mostly not living according to these values, and because of many reasons which I'm not going in now. But I would like to just go shortly into the cleanliness customs still. Previously there has been very many customs among the Roma concerning the cleanliness and chastity. And that because they had to care of the cleanliness as much as possible while they were traveling. On the other hand, the customs were supported the order and togetherness of the community. The cultural oriental cleanliness is including, as I already mentioned it, the dishes, the cutlery, the food, the washing and the laundry. Laundry, for example, we could tell that the Roma do never wash different kind of clothes together. They never mix the clothes. They separately wash the different, like clothes wearing upper sides, the underwear, children's clothes, and the elderly people's clothes. They are all washed separately because, again, connecting to the cleanliness and oriental purity system, the children's clothes and the elderly people's clothes are pure, traditionally pure, more pure than the adult people's clothes. Underwear are the most unclear things which is existing actually, and because of that they are also washed separately. Washing of hands is very important. Even when you are coming from a shower and you put on your clothes, before you can go to kitchen and touch with the cutleries, you have to wash your hands. Because when you are touching with your hands your body without clothes, then your hands are impure. And before you can touch things in kitchen, you have to wash the hands because you touched with the underwear. If I would touch with my shoes, my hands would become unclear, and I had to wash them before I'm going to kitchen and starting to eating or drinking. And I think this is maybe describing clearly how precise the cleanliness is. And this is, in a way, it's also humoristic, because in old times we were discussing when we came here that how different kind of understanding the different cultures have of cleanliness. In old days, the majority, even I myself personally have heard people to say me that gypsies are
filthy.
Not clean.
Yeah, filthy.
Filthy, okay. And they do have small animals, and they spread of different sicknesses, and these kind of thoughts are very common actually among the majority. And this is in a way humoristic, because if the majority would know how precise and how stricted the instructions of relating to the purity is when we are cleaning our houses, when we are putting our clothes on, when we separate all the laundries to different categories, and how important it is with washing of the hands. In Finland, for example, usually a normal usual day includes at least 10 times of the day you have to wash your hands again and again and again. If you go to outside and you come in again, before you go anywhere, you have to wash your hands. Before you touch anything, you have to wash your hands. I'm jumping a little bit because it's starting to be too long. I'm jumping to the chastity, just shortly. This is a little bit difficult topic for me, because actually, according to the Roma rules, the rromani, we are now in university, and particularly because of that reason, I have taken the courage to, in front of several Roma men, to speak about issues which are actually not allowed to be spoken publicly. The Roma do not, in between the genders, speak about, for example, about sexuality and chastity and marriages, shaming and things like this, because they are taboos. Because I want to disseminate information, the real information about the inside values, I think it is important to come and make these things clear, to give you an opportunity to really look inside of the inside Romani values and the cultural values. And I think that this values is also giving maybe you a more easier way to really understand how much, even in today's Romani, among the different Roma groups in Europe, there is the oriental connection of different kind of moral values which are ruling inside of the community. Inside of the community, the different generations do not, as I said, discuss about sexual issues. The Roma has a bashful attitude towards sexuality. And second thing which is not discussed publicly is pregnancy, because it indicates very strongly to sexuality. And particularly it's not discussed in the presence of all elderly Roma. Of course, the elderly do recognize a woman to be pregnant, but the women usually try to hide the pregnancy with big scarves and loose clothing as long as it possible. This does not, however, mean that the children would not be welcome. The Roma love their children and grandchildren, but they show them visibly only after the child has been born. Death is experienced very strongly and deeply. The memories can be so strong that the family finds it difficult to live in the same place where the deceased live with them after the death. If it's possible, the family will move to another place that does not continuously remind them to the deceased. All the personal belongings and clothes of the deceased are destroyed. At least other Roma will not wear them anymore. The jewelry and some handmade memorabilia, such as lace towels and sheets, are kept, and they will be handed down as inheritance. The pictures of the deceased are very important memorabilia, and they are carefully stored. If the deceased owned property, no inheritance arguments will occur. In most of the cases, the deceased has named the person who will inherit him or her while she or he was still alive. The oldest son may have some privileges, but in general the children are treated equally. The customs relating to the death and the abolishment of the deceased person's belongings have nothing to do with the fear of the death like some people mistakenly think. The death and the deceased can be discussed freely. The funeral. The close relatives of the deceased will take care of the funeral arrangements, both of the economical responsibility and the technical arrangements. An invitation to the funeral is not necessarily sent out, but everyone to whom the deceased has been important will come to the funeral. Also, the friends of the close relatives may come to the funeral to support them to take part in the grieving, even if they have not known the deceased. The official part of the Roma funeral usually takes 2-3 days, and the customs are varying in different parts of Europe, depending also the tribe of the question. In its religion and traditions, everyone will gather to funeral house or the home of the family of the deceased the night before the funeral. The close relatives and the friends of the deceased will stay awake for the night. The elder and the children will be put onto the bed when they get tired. No one must stay awake, but usually at least some close relatives will stay awake throughout the night. Devotions will be held and the deceased remembered during the night. The table is full of the food to eat and drink. The Roma think that the last night of the deceased is in the earth and the following day he or she will be buried. Therefore, the loss will be experienced as final during the night. The concept of the justice, I'm again jumping a little bit. A certain system of norms of justice based on the community's inner views can be found in every community. Also, the Roma have their norms of justice and morality. The misconduct with the community is addressed within the community, and the person who is found guilty of misconduct will receive the punishment decided by the community, the elders of the family Vitsa, or the Roma court, which is also called Roma Kris. Mostly the punishment is moral, in a certain type of loss of reputation and loss of position in the social structure of the community. To some, this may seem as a petty punishment, but in reality it works very effectively. In the Roma community, the concept of the honor towards other Roma has been very emphasized. Due to the misconduct, the reputation of the close relatives can also be hurt. The collective nature of punishment is due to the norms of the community that oblige the one to take responsibility over the one's relations and their other actions. In some parts of Europe, the punishment of the Roma Chris can be economic compensation to the victim on or her or his family, the kins of another. It might be too painful to be in daily contact after the sorrow caused. This might be not easy to understand to a person not belonging to a Roma community, but an easy example can be taken that, for example, if your neighbor would happen to kill one of your family members, you might not want to live after that thing besides of your neighbor anymore, because the neighbor afterwards would remind you every day about what happened. And that is one reason why there is a kind of honoring of the sorrow of the one who has gone through the misconduct has to be taken, and that means that the one who has done the sorrow has to move and avoid this family. Religion, only some few words about the religion. We could say that among the Roma people around the world, there is a strong belief to God and to good and evil. Human in between these invisible forces, making choices which counts the person's goodness or evilness. For the most part, the Roma have adopted the religion of their country of the residence. They are Catholics, Orthodox, Protestants, Muslims, etc. A part of Roma in almost every European country has become followers of the so-called free movements, free evangelicals or Pentecostals during the last years. Religious issues are respected and religion is freely discussed. The traditional Romani greeting is the Aves Bahtalo. Future to discuss about the real Romani P cultural identity values in such an occasions like in schools and in universities. And before we are going further and taking a short break after a while, I would like to give you an opportunity to ask maybe something about what you just heard about our cultural values and the main characters. If there is something which didn't become clear or a question you want to state, you are welcome to do that.
Jefti Salman, do you feel, absolutely, and all the Roma feel that all the rules about purity and all the rules about chastity comes directly from India? Do you feel it? Or is it...
Actually, if I think, not myself, because I have been maybe reading a little bit more about the backgrounds and the social relations of the cultural habits which are relating us to Orient and to the Indian roots. But I'm now answering to you from the basics of so-called normal Romani women who are living within these customs. I would say that it never comes into a traditional Roma woman's mind today that her traditions are coming from India. It's a natural thing, it's a heritage of culture which has been transferred orally and by bringing up the children from centuries to centuries. For example, I can see in today's situation that the relationship of the Roma towards water has a clear Indian connection, totally clear Indian connection. Why I can tell you that? When my mother used to wash us as a children, how she washed us. Now later on, when I have been more aware of our Indian origin and heritage, I can see a clear connection how my mother washed our children when we were small, and with the Indian mother and the relation to the water. For example, we standed, and she took water with some
Jug?
yes, one with jug. She took water with jug, and she put the water in our heads, and she washed out from head downstairs. At the same time, when the water was running from the head downstairs, she blessed us. She prayed all the time. She said that God make you pure inside and outside.
Ce ti preso rromani?
Devel sarde Giusavem miricavo arrunes ai avrines. She said that she prayed me to become pure inside and outside, and be born again in a way, blessed by the God. And that, for example, has a clear connection to India and Ganges. You know that people are traveling pilgrims from long distances to go and adopt them in Ganges to be pured with the water from all the sins inside and outside. So my mother, for example, didn't know this, but it was a heritage of her, and she used it, and in the traditional customs, the mothers still do that.
I'm working in a humanitarian organization in Médecins du Monde, and we all see that even if the Roma live in a very tiny, dirty, very poor little houses or little campina caravans, inside the caravan, and the body of the people, we are obliged to hear their lungs, to open the space. They are always very, very, very
Clean.
very clean. Even if there is water 5 kilometers
Far, yeah.
far, they are always clean.
Extremely clean, yeah.
Extreme.
Irrespectively of the conditions of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, you have a question. Then maybe this.
Yes, I would like you to tell us more about what you consider like a need of modernizing the Roma language.
How-
Why do you think that this language needs to be modernized?
Because of the well, my opinion is that there is an urgent need of words to be created, which are describing today's life in almost all living fields. Like, for example, I give you an example. We spoke with Marcel yesterday in the evening when I came about television and computer. Thinking about language which is not written language, which is an oral language. We didn't have such kind of words like television and computer. So in Finland, what happened when I started to work with the children for 18 years ago in school, and we were planning to write out the first ABC books, we started to think what could be a word in Romani for computer. I know that nowadays in whole Europe there is existing at least 4 to 5 different variations how the different groups have solved this question about computer. In Finland, I went to the older people and I asked their opinion. What is your opinion about how we could say this word computer in Romani? And their answer to me was that the computer is inside of it. It is very much information, knowledge. So starting from the word knowledge, which in Romani is Janibe, they said it could be Jani Bosco Mohto. A mohto is a box, a lot of full of information, knowledge. Jani Bosco Mohto. So with modernizing the vocabulary, I meant that in today's current situation, we have to work with these things.
Technology.
Yes.
Only for technology?
Not only for technology. For example, when we started to do, these are very simple examples, we started to do the first working book. We find out that in Finnish Kaalo dialect, because it has been a nomad dialect, and because no connections to settle down and go in the school, we did lack totally all the wordings which belong to school, like ruler, pencil, pupil, this kind of simple words. We didn't have these words at all because they were never used inside of the Roma community. We didn't need those words. So we had to start to work with these words, and we didn't want to go directly in and borrow some international word like pencil or ruler. We started to make some research in the etymology of our own language. What are the old meanings of to do this thing? And we also went back to Sanskrit and took a look of other dialects. But in many cases we found out that the other dialects has unfortunately borrowed the words from the surrounding languages which they are using. And because of that, I think that it's enormously important to work together, the linguistics and the people who are working with the language, to create words which are not, well, it can be. I mean, if a language ought to be living, it probably have to loan some percentage of the words. But to make, to preserve the speciality of a language needs also careful research. And when we are creating new words, the best way, according to the Finnish opinion, Finnish Kaalo opinion, is to go back to Sanskrit and Hindi and to the roots, to original languages, and find words from there, and trying to connect these original root words to today's behavior and needs.
Now the further piece of information about these three words. In various dialects we have the exact counterpart. For instance, a pupil is rendered by the word siklovno in many dialects, and even in written Romani now, and very often I come across text including this word, siklovno, or siklovni, a sheep, pupil. A ruler is a vortin, from the Romani word vorta, straight. And the third one, a pencil, is angarno, which has been used especially in Romanian Romani from angar, which is charcoal, because formerly pencils were made of charcoal inside, angar. So angarno is most widespread word for pencil.
You know what we did in Finland? We made a pencil of word ran, which is writing,
Mm-hmm.
and it became rannil,
Mm-hmm.
because it's connected with doing marks, writing.
Mm-hmm.
But because of this thing, if we think about the future of the language, and particularly if we think about how to make it as internationally useful as possible, it would be very good if we in the future could, particularly when we are talking about teaching materials, for example, when teaching materials are prepared, it would be good. We have just about, in the beginning of this year, we started in Council of Europe a new project called the Education of Roma Gypsies Children in Europe. One of the tasks, the goals of this project, is to find out if it's possible to make a harmonization in producing the Romani teaching materials in the low level of education, meaning elementary comprehensive school. Because creating a similar kind of wording on these phases could be very important and give good opportunities for the students to go further in their education and in their studies. And that, of course, will need a common framework for a common European curriculum to teach Romani as a mother tongue. This is something which we are now considering over, and it will be a not easy task and not a short project. But I really would hope that we, in some stage of near future, after some years, would come out with a whole series of 1 to 9 grades teaching materials on Roman language, on harmonized based and in a common curriculum which is proceeding and growing with a certain mother tongue basis which is common to all of the European languages.
The goal is extremely ambitious, but I think it deserves it. It's to bring Romani to a foot of equality, absolute equality with all other languages in Europe, from all standpoints of ability to express, rights, use, efficiency, and so on. This is the aim we want to reach. Maybe we could do it during the next 15 years, because as you know, in 15 years we will feast the millennium of the exodus from India. And this is the reason why we will call this this project Vision 2018. Because in 2018 there will be exactly 1,000 years from the exodus of the Rroms from the city of Kanauj in 1018. Yeah, vacker prala. Va? Mhm.
Dali oraipe ali Finlandia dice je kažu tipe romenge kai feceren koja chip standardo e ta charupe ako eterme na shen ali kan ka volin je sa ke cherupe
Pustika, va?
pustika ko asa lavara kai ta volin ignivipe andali andalo site ma e pujaki te avoli contatti kata kolini lenza pachaka Nika khasavo dici oterneka rodente manjente diceno levi pe kanchite dici pe krepuci.
Insan.
Dar și că interesant ako jame pelenge idali Finlandia Miranda posebno se jame că ce voi dici pe Kalabuca. Dali voi dicio ei jile te cero numai ici Finitsko, deci dali te lol kai chip standard do
que compromissi. You understood the question?
Not
In fact, there were two questions.
Yeah, I find out.
The first question is to which extent did you benefit any help from the Finnish government for the integration of your dialect into the wide European Romani standard? And the second question was, do you see any possibility to revive the language thanks to the use of, well, if your view is to use only Finnish Kaalo or European continental standard or kind of compromise, and which way is the best one to revive Kaalo, which seems to be, according to what you said, half extinct?
It is a very, very difficult question. Because I know, but because you might know very well, so I'm not going very deeply inside of this, but mainly the European dialects are divided in two categories: the Western type and the Eastern type of categories. This is a kind of linguistical division. It's not a Roma division. But the non-Slavic, the Western type of dialects are only few. Let's say Sinti and Kaalo are the Western type, certainly with the Western type of dialects, at least. Maybe Anglo-Romani from UK.
Which is almost extinct.
Yeah. And the other ones, the biggest part, the main part of the Roma speakers living in the more or less the speaking on the so-called linguistical way, so-called Slavic dialects, which do have a strong influence from the Slavic languages. It is not an easy question because every group, Lovaris, Kaldarasha, Manushis, Sinti, Kaalo, all these groups are extremely proud of their own dialects. Because of that, we have been following a discussion between linguistics, which has gone on now about 15 years in Europe. Different kind of views how the Romani language should be standardized and how it could be used more widely, unanimously throughout Europe. Until these days, we haven't got a simplified answer for this discussion. It might be that it comes in the future. Particularly, it might be that it comes because nowadays the Roma has been started to be used more in the official connections, which means that we have to produce more and more material and literature for European level, and that might influence this direction that there will be in some states a more unified, standardized language and orthography for the whole Europe. But for nowadays, we could say that Kaalo are not so very open to accept all the standardized norms which are now existing in Europe. We could say that, actually I could very shortly just introduce this paper, which I'm not going to present you to save the time a little bit. We have been sitting here almost 2 hours, and probably we will sit 1 hour more before we end this. And I want to go inside of the European situation more, so I will jump over this bit of Finnish experiences, only introducing shortly this paper by saying that in the current situation in Finland, we have approximately 10,000 Roma, Kaale Roma, and there is some 3,000-4,000 Finnish Kaale Roma also living in Sweden. So altogether about 14,000. Not much compared with many other European countries which do have several hundreds of thousands of Roma population groups. But after the wars, the independence wars and the Second World War, we had a time when Sami language, which is an indigenous language, and the Kaalo, the Romani, was not allowed to be spoken in public. So because of that, we lost one generation. We lost, in a sense, the generation that they didn't learn the Roma as the first mother tongue to us, to their children. So I'm a child of this lost generation after war. I was more lucky than the others, because my grandparents didn't care about the deniance of speaking Romani. They spoke fluently 5 languages. They were illiterated. They spoke the Russian Romani dialects and the Finnish Romani dialects. So I had opportunity to listen their discussions every day, and that gave me a better possibility to become a Romani Kaalo language teacher than for the others. But in today's situation, the young children who are now attending today's school in Finland, they know only a few words of Kaalo dialect, like maro, pani, macher, audari, small phrases or commands from the parents. Don't do that. Come here, or be quiet, or what is I'm hungry, or give me food, or things like these simple things. So we have to start with them from the very beginning. When we are creating the new needed vocabulary, we are in today's situation, we are going back to Sanskrit, as I already mentioned it, from the roots of the language. But we also we have a language board sitting in the Research Center of Domestic Languages. It's an officially stated and nominated board which is making research in Kaalo dialect and also in other dialects and comparing it. We have two researchers, one of non-Roma origin, a linguistic, and one from Roma origin, working constituently there in the Domestic Center of Research Languages. So we have a Romani language board there, and they are doing this comparison. And if they find in other dialects words which are original Roma words and they can be loaned, so of course they are taking them.
Have you dictionaries?
Yes, one of them is here. We have dictionaries from 17th century already, actually, but most of them are made from non-Roma linguistics. Grellman made our first
Grellman himself, yes.
Yeah, dictionary in 17th century. And then we had, for example, a very famous linguistic like Artur Teslev, which is the member of the London Gypsy Lore Society, or was actually. And Paul Ariste, for example, made a dictionary. And Christopher Kanander made, Axel Kronqvist made. But then we have two Roma who has, during the last century, made also dictionaries.
Roma Finnish?
This is Finnish Roma English, but we have also a version of English Roma. I don't have it with me here now.
So as for the perception of dialectology in Finland, it's important to know that dialectology is far more developed in the Sami kieli field. And maybe this had a kind of a negative influence in Romani, because the Sami dialects are far more different between themselves than the Romani dialects. I mean, in the four countries, Russia, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, there are three main Sami dialects and 7 sub-dialects. And the differences between these Sami dialects are really enormous. Maybe like between Romance languages. And starting from this standpoint, many people expect that the differences between Romani dialects are similar to the differences between Sami dialects, while in fact they are more restricted. Romani dialects all over Europe are not so much, how would I say, fragmented as Sami dialect, and this might be one of the reasons why Finnish researchers in linguistics expect that there are many differences between the Romani dialects.
L'Europe du Nord, donc Finlande, Suède.
Scandinavia, ça.
Cumva e Scandinavia, si problemi Europa asta, cumva ca geam de știința, o țară ca la cealaltă, avem ghirgile. Normal, si vi cumva, că si mașcara mare, n-am ușa Roma sa de si diferent locale, sinti, cumva, că si o icil diferent, nu sa cum ajute icel pilo. S-ar prendai medima, mangetre șanjile de cip. Mă romni. Când hacearul mă să ceram sfată Marcelesa, până șanjili sardanci și Ședem, paruvem nămici.
Change. Change. She says takes the word change because she doesn't know paruvel.
Yeah, that's the way how the Roma are feeling today, and that was I meant when I said that all the groups are extremely proud of their own dialects, and when they do hear a person coming from another group speaking on Romani, they used to say that they are speaking not the right kind of Romani language. That's the most common attitude.
Inteligența românii ticare nici. Acum nu mangem, ticare la manusha. Inteligența trebuie hacerol dise manusha kasi.
Va.
Bun ticare cu. Dadi mașca lende, mașca Europa, că Scandinavia, deci nu pe compromis. Observa puțara că Scandinavia țara te parul perigoji. Te hacerol că să mai putea catar. Trebuie că simon cu catar. Cu inteligența că te hacerol, că te parul perigoji te pro, că acabou de romanici, pale panșul de șate, cerem sau roman e.
In fact, it's not a matter of number. It's true that the Rroms speaking the European variety, the continental variety, are more than 6 millions, which is 100 times more than the Finnish Roma almost. But it's not only a matter of number, a matter of statistics. The truth is that the dialects spoken in Europe, in continental Europe, if you exclude the Gajic elements, are closer to the prototype, to the Indian prototype, than peripheral speeches like Kaalo or like Pogadi in England or like Sinti and so on. So the core here is more Indian, and this is a reason why a compromise could be a good idea, but bringing closer these peripheral dialects to a center would be a wiser way of achieving this unification.
But Baltic speaking?
No.
Indian.
Balto-Russian, no. Balto-Russian has a lot of racism.
A few words before I go further to European context about the Finnish situation. I have some copies I have taken about the Finnish model here, and it's really an example about how to build up a functioning cooperation between the government and the Roma population. I doesn't say that the Finnish model is the only right one, nor I would say that we are the only ones who has been working on this field. But I would say that we have one of the longest experience of building up cooperation, and we are still building up the cooperation to be on a good and equal ground and democratic ground. But in Finland we started in 1956 already, almost 43 years ago. And because of that we have a quite long experience on failings and succeedings. On 1956 there was created a cult of Gypsy Council in the connection of the Ministry of Social Affairs at that time. And the nomination of this council has been renewed several times, and latest 1989, when the name was changed into the Advisory Board on Romani Affairs. It is located in the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health still. It has one vacancy, actually 2 vacancies, meaning the General Secretary of the Advisory Board and a Technical Secretary. The board is consisted half of central governmental ministry representatives, and the other half is coming from the National Romani Organization. What differs the Romani Advisory Board in Finland compared with other similar cooperation bodies in today's Europe is that it is really functioning. And the Roma are themselves on board. They are taking part in the decision. The board is able to give statements to all United Nations monitored conventions, for example. And the board can give statements and make motions to our parliament and all different ministries. Whenever the issue of Roma is discussed in some level, official level of the society, the Roma is always consulted. And the advisory board can give its views, and it has even taken quite strongly part into influencing and creating the principles and characters of Finnish human rights policy towards minority, indigenous people, Roma, disabled peoples, children's rights and women's rights. So we are within this framework. We haven't solved all the problems which the Roma encounter today. Which we have a great experience of is how we can participate together and how we can learn by giving opportunity to Roma to learn how to examine, how to considerate and how to try to find solutions, the right solutions on the Roma point of view to the different existing problems. 1995 the Finnish Constitutional Act was renewed, and in that renewing process the advisory board took very, very strongly part of it, and it ended to the fact that today in the Finnish Constitution Act there is an article saying that the Sami as indigenous people and the Romani as the traditional minority of Finland has right to maintain their own culture and language. This article in our Constitution Act has led to various legislative renewings in different legislations and juridical fields like education, labor, housing, languages, social rights, etc. So we could say that in today's situation Finland has the government level and in the legislation level really worked out existing and functioning models. What is still lacking in many parts is sufficient enough implementation. And with implementation, I'm meaning the administrational renewings in all levels of society, meaning starting from the government and parliament level to the regional government level and to the local municipalities. We have right now, we have recently established 4 provincial advisory boards in the connection of the provincial governments. So there is similar advisory boards in all the regions of Finland, taking care and examining, considering exactly those problems which you find in that region together with the local municipalities. This only to tell you that there is existing examples how the Roma can be really integrated and involved in the issues concerning them if there is political will, economical resources and interest. So I'm not going further inside of this Finnish model, but you can take a copy of it, and if you have time and interest you can be more familiar with it. I'm going now into the European framework and European context of who are the actors in the European field, what is existing in today's situation. It might be that some of you are already familiar with this issue already, so I'm hoping that not boring you out with this. Particularly I see some faces which I'm quite certain that they already know a lot of these things. What is existing? Let's say that in today's situation we have the intergovernmental organizations, 3 big of them working in the European field, namely Council of Europe, which is the oldest one of all the intergovernmental institutions, working especially in the field of human rights, minority rights and social rights. This is very raw description, but it's including all these main fields. In the field of social rights and minority rights, there is a specialized division of Romani activities lying in the context of social cohesion of the Council of Europe. In there, in the Roma Gypsy division, we do have a coordinator of the Roma Gypsy activities, and there is a specialized body also, which is called MGS-ROM, the Specialist Group of Roma and Gypsies, which is a government-based and nominated specialist group. In this group is, in today's situation, about 13 experts from 13 different European countries. 4 of them are of Roma origin and government nominated. There has been, during these 7 years of its existence, some criticism against it, because it's called specialist body, specialist group of Roma experts. And it doesn't exactly equally involve the Roma. When we count that there is 13 members and only 4 of them with Roma background. So from the Roma organization side, there has been during years quite a lot of criticism against it. But at the same time, we have to say that this specialist group has succeeded to create such quite an important, several important recommendations to all, general recommendations adopted by the Committee of Ministers of Council of Europe, like the education of Roma Gypsy children are 2000, for example, and another one is the recommendation of housing. There is a lot of reports made, and there is a countrywide kind of archive where we are collecting information. The Roma Gypsy division is also doing country visits, and in my opinion it is a very important, and it has been during the 19th a very important player on the field of promoting Roma rights, minority rights and social rights in the European field. Right now there is an ongoing renewing of the terms of references for MGS-ROM, the specialist group on Roma Gypsy issues. And it might be that this renewing is including more Roma in the near future in its work. The Roma international organizations has its right to participate in the meetings. In every meeting, 8 Roma observers can take part, and they are invited. But they still do have an observer status, because specialist group of Roma Gypsies is an intergovernmental, it's government-based and government-nominated specialist group. In the context of Council of Europe, there is a lot of other specialized bodies which are working with the Roma rights. Parliamentary Assembly, for example, of the Council of Europe has been giving out recommendations and resolutions and reports. The latest report, which has been made by a Hungarian parliamentarian, Mr. Tabaji, about the legal status of the Roma in Europe, came out last year. And right now there is an ongoing process to make a new kind of general policy recommendation of Roma's, promoting Roma's situation in Europe. This general policy recommendation gives actually guidelines in all the so-called social fields, like labor questions, housing, education, civil rights, and all the other social fields. There is also an ongoing process to produce a new recommendation on the field of healthcare, access to healthcare services throughout Europe. Council of Europe made 1 year ago a large research, country by country research, and finding out very worrying phenomena about the Roma's access to healthcare services throughout Europe. For example, I can really say that according to this research, about 40 to 60% of the 10 million European Roma are totally outside of all healthcare services. The life length has been shown clearly shorter than the majority. In mortality among the Roma children is many times higher than among the majority comparative figures and procents. So there is an ongoing